Greetings, my name is Cedric Chuma from Financial Insight Zambia, and today I am at the National Assembly of Zambia where the Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Situmbeko Musokotwane, will be giving his national budget address. Follow Financial Insight Zambia exclusively on Twitter for our coverage of today's national budget address, sponsored by KPMG. Get to know. So I'd like to hear your expectations before the address by the minister. What do you want to see in the budget?
Well, I think that when you look back to this particular minister's tenure in Parliament, the first budget was more about stimulating growth in the economy, getting companies to function, restoring confidence in the Zambian economy, and the second year's budget that he presented again was following on the same theme to make sure that necessary changes are made to the budget in order to attract investment into Zambia. And so this year I think I expect stability, that there will be more stability, there will be more reinforcing of the measures that have already been passed. I do not expect that there will be any radical changes, any radical proposals in this budget in terms of revenue measures.
Well, expectations are always many, but of course we're looking for some major announcements basically in the manufacturing sector where it will allow us to change direction and make manufacturing a big contributor to the GDP. We've given a lot of submissions, not only tax, policy, strategic change. Let's see what comes out of it.
Okay, I think you've mentioned that you gave some suggestions. What are some of those suggestions you gave for this year's budget?
There's tax reductions, there's issues on excise, there's issues on taxing, creating incentives on value chains. Strategic change also has been our big push this year, where we want to see specific interventions that allow for one supply chain to be secure from base resources like agriculture and mining, to now value addition sectors like us, and for finished products into retail. So we have tried to make submissions where we look at creating an ecosystem for the good of the country. Right? It's not just about the manufacturing sector. If we succeed, the agriculture base that feeds into our industry succeeds, and even the retail industry succeeds.
This year, it's a bit hard to read, but looking at government agenda, what I expect is that government has been pursuing a decentralization agenda. They started the CDF, so my expectation is that allocation to CDF is going to increase, and I hope that during this budget there will be probably some clear guidance so that the funds that are allocated to CDF are utilized so that we can see development, especially in rural areas. The second thing that I expect is that I think government is in a way trying to change the way they manage the FIZ program. And I know that government wants to boost agriculture.
As expected, nothing so dramatic. It's a stabilization budget, and you can see it for yourself. There aren't too many measures that would rock the ground, as it were. So it's been a beautiful budget, a number of exciting things in there. As expected on the expenditure side, rationalizing expenditure, making sure it's been directed to the right places. That he has again addressed in the budget. So overall, I'm just happy with the outcome of this particular budget.
Wow, so speaking to the perspective of tax, we've seen a new tax being introduced on mobile money, as well as the tax band being raised, as well as the upper band being reduced by 0.5%. What do you have to say about that?
It's not a surprise because the chairman of the Zambia Revenue Authority, Dr. Caleb Fundanga, already alluded to the need to be able to capture this growing informal sector, because you see it was creating competition for the banks, and I'm talking mobile monies, the transactions that are happening within the mobile money sector, because a lot of money is being transacted and that is not being captured within the tax framework. And it's good to see that at least something will be realized from those many transactions that are happening through mobile money. As you know, if you are banking, there will be charges with your bank. And some of those translate into tax that we end up receiving. But for mobile money, one, the transactions were not being captured at all. So if sales were done and they were done through mobile money, you never get to capture that. But by being able to introduce this tax, small amount, 18 ngwe, up to 1/4 18 ngwe, on transactions, depending on the value of the transactions, I think it's the right thing to do in order to also bring into the tax bracket the many transactions that are happening through mobile money, which may not be captured for tax purposes.
So I think he touched on the number of issues we raised earlier on in terms of our expectation. So let me start with the mining sector. I think he's committed himself to resolving the Mopani issues probably before the end of the year. And then also he's also committed himself to increase support towards new projects. I think he did mention that there could be a pretty big announcement around one of the biggest mines coming into Zambia pretty soon. So that aligns with his ambition to increase production of copper by 3 million metric tons. On the macroeconomic objectives, I think he has tried to stay the course because he hasn't moved the variables to the set targets of 6 to 8% on inflation. I think the GDP is around 4.8, pretty much what's in the International Development Plan, pretty much what's in the Green Paper, the medium-term plan. So I think he's trying to align to the transformation agenda, growing the economy, creating the jobs and all those things. He's also, I think, from the banking sector perspective, challenged the sector to look at the pricing of loans in the market. On his side, I think he's committed that he projects the fall of the cost of funds on treasury bills and bonds. So he expects that perhaps going forward we should see a reduction in terms of the cost of finance. He's urged the sector to also increase support to SMEs, and he has given incentives to those industries in the agro-processing, like in the cotton sector. We saw those incentives just to increase production in that particular sector. And obviously the surprise one is that for mobile money, people that transact, there will be a new tax of about 8 ngwe to a cap of, let's say, 1/4 20 ngwe. So I'm sure that's something the Zambian people will get accustomed to once it is introduced next year, because financial service provider will have to pass on the cost to the people that will be transacting. So that's another way of increasing tax revenue from the informal sector.
Look, I think it's a very good and very balanced budget. Yeah, I must say that I'm very impressed with the way that the minister has presented the budget. There have been a few surprises and some good surprises, I must say. For instance, on infrastructure development, I personally did not expect that they were going to increase that expenditure. It's good to see that they've increased that expenditure because, let's face it, a lot of infrastructure still needs a lot of attention. And in a time where we are at the moment, it is a bold decision for the government to be able to still go ahead and make a commitment. There are some roads that have been very, very bad, and some of the roads that he has mentioned, these are roads that it's very difficult to move. For example, Chipata Diesel Road, and if we do not start now, it was going to take a very long time before we could go back to those. And some feeder roads as well. He mentioned something like 2,000 kilometers or so. That is, again, very, very good. Some of the roads, some of the feeder roads, especially in places like the Copper Belt. There are certain times when I go on the Copper Belt in Kitwe and Chingola, I'm looking at the roads, I'm like, these need attention, urgent attention. So it is actually very good and it's impressive. And whenever you see those kind of projects, it means that it helps to continue driving the economy. I think there will be need for more public-private partnerships to be able to see that. I'm also very impressed, I must say, to see that he's widening the net and seeing how everyone should be able to participate. So there have been some very big pronouncements that have been made. Some of them, they look like small, but they go a long way, where every Zambian is going to contribute. So if you look at what he has said today on the levy, on the mobile money person-to-person payments, it only looks like an 18 way and it looks like it's nothing. But if you look at the volumes, it will go a long way and everyone will be able to contribute.
Greetings everyone, my name is Cedric Chuma from Financial Insight Zambia, here at the National Budget Symposium at the Mulungushi International Conference Center, KK Wing, where this coverage is proudly sponsored by KPMG. Right now, I'm joined by KPMG Senior Partner, Jason Kazilimani. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to see you, and hi to everyone out there watching this conversation.
Always glad to have you. I think you're part of FIZ, if you will. So what get initial reaction from you firstly on the budget? What do you think?
Well, I think it's ultimate stability budget, if there's any such term, or stabilization budget. There's really nothing that's really rocked the boat, but I think it's more like a course correction to bring the country back on course to achieve the Vision 30 ambition of being a prosperous medium income country by 2030. I think there's been quite a bit allocated to tourism, agriculture, manufacturing, and so on. For example, if you look at infrastructure, the share of the budget, I think, increases from 9% last year to something like 14% last year. And that will flow through to the likes of roads, new airports, which should help generate economic activity and also, I suppose, stimulate tourism, the likes of, say, Cassava Bay. There's going to be an airport in Cassava Bay. So I think it's more of a growth budget, nothing really that really stands out, but I think it's putting us back on the right track for growth.
I think so. I think central to the theme of the budget is prudency, right?
Correct.
So it's mostly to sustain and to keep the economy stable.
Exactly.
One thing that we've noticed is in the ways in which they're going to raise revenue from the budget, especially the decline in borrowing. What do you have to say on that particular side?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think 89% of the budget will be from domestic revenues, less on financing. So I think that speaks to more discipline. And I think it gels with the ambition to reduce the budget deficit to 4.8% of GDP, which is a major reduction when you compare to, say, 2020. The budget deficit was 14.4% of GDP. And the ambition now is bringing it down to 4.8. So that's a major, major reduction. And I think speaks to, like, as you said, prudence of expenditure and also focused borrowing, careful borrowing. And responsible borrowing.
Yes, I think which is something most Zambians would be happy to hear, seeing the path that we're coming from.
Exactly.
Also, another thing to note from the budget is that year on year, the budget is seen to grow by a rate of 17%. Do you think this is a fair rate of growth, given our corresponding economic growth of the country?
I think it is fair, looking at where we're coming from. If you recall, was the COVID year of 2020 when it was actually negative growth. Last year was 2.7%. So it is a fair rate of growth, seeing where we're coming from, looking at the base we're coming from. It's not enough, obviously. We want to go back to the years, that golden decade when we had average growth of 7% year on year. But then things were different. Then there wasn't COVID. A lot of new mines were coming on board, on stream, and jacking up production. The last few years have been impacted by the likes of COVID and the issues we've had at some of Zambia's biggest mines, like the ones in Kitwe, Chingola, and Chindawombo.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned mining. There's a big drive by the government to get the country back to 7% GDP growth, as well as to raise mining output to 3 million tons. There was a big mention, I think, of us falling behind our neighboring country, DRC, and I think as at now we are about 800,000 or so metric tons of copper. Do you see this budget leading us to achieving that growth by 2030?
Well, as I said, I think it's a course correction. It's bringing us back on track. 3 million tons is a very ambitious target. It is achievable if the climate is right. And I think what is gratifying to note is that there were no major shocks or changes to the mining tax regime. Okay, that's one issue that Zambia has had, where we have had inconsistencies. One year you have this tax, next year it goes out, and so on and so forth. But with stability, I think that will send a message to the investors in mind that Zambia is a stable environment, and let's go there for the long term. So as I said, it is a good base to get us back on track. And if all goes well, if the other interventions work, and if the mining tax regime stays as stable as it can, then yeah, we do have a chance at achieving the 3 million tons of coal production.
Greetings everyone, my name is Cedric Chuma for Financial Insight Zambia, and today I am at the Copperbelt Energy Corporation, where I am joined by the Managing Director, Mr. Owen Selabwe. Mr. Selabwe, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. Greetings to you, Cedric.
Greetings. Glad to have you on the Financial Insight Zambia, and I wanted to get your initial reactions to the budget.
Thank you. When I look at this year's budget, our initial assessment is that it builds on the budgets that we've seen in the last 2 years, and more importantly, what we like is that it continues with the stability and policy consistency that we've seen in the last years. I think this is good for investment in the country. Secondly, I just want to highlight something of great interest to us, which is the promotion of public-private sector partnerships, in short PPP. Which the government continues to promote in this budget. Obviously, this is currently focused on roads, but this is a model that can work for other infrastructure as well, energy, rail, and all that. So we are hoping that we'll see the use of this model in the energy sector as well.
And what are some of the key things that stood out for you from the budget, especially things that relate to your sector and to your firm in particular?
There are a number of items that are of interest, but maybe let me just highlight 4 that are of note from my perspective. The first one relates to green development. The government has removed customs duty with respect to importation of electric vehicles and related accessories. We believe this is good. It's obviously going to encourage green development in this country. The second one, again relating to customs duty, is the removal of customs duty on machinery, equipment, and other consumables relating to geothermal. So this, we believe, is going to incentivize investors in the geothermal energy space. Again, that obviously is good for the country. The other one that I want to talk about relates to mining. The commitment by government to undertake countrywide geological surveys, again, is commendable, as this is going to spur investments in mining and other related industries. This is good for economic development for our country. And the last item that I would want to highlight, I think this relates to hydro generation. The government has extended the period for VAT claims from 4 years to 7 years relating to the hydro generation. So that is, again, a good incentive for investors in the hydro generation space.
Thank you so much for your insights, Mr. Selabwe. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Cedric.
Right, this is Cedric Chuma for Financial Insight Zambia. Get to know.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this special broadcast of the Financial Insight Show, where we are at the Union Gold offices with Mark O'Donnell, who is going to sit down with me to have a short discussion regarding his key takeaways on the 2024 budget that was recently announced by Honorable Dr. Musokotwane. Mark, how are you doing?
Very well, Mwewe. Thanks for coming by today.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for hosting us. And essentially, it's budget season, and last week Dr. Musokotwane gave a very lengthy, budget announcement for 2024. What were your initial reactions of the 2024 budget?
I think budgeting in general is the government's opportunity to, let's say, balance their books. It's about income versus expenditure. Obviously, government has various programs, social infrastructure, and they need to budget to pay for those, and they do this by raising taxes and so on. So it's an annual process that normally should be in the background, but unfortunately in Zambia it seems to have become very prominent, and people seem to think that the budget is this sort of event that is going to fix all our problems. At the end of the day, it's really just an income and expenditure budget, which every company does every year anyway. So yes, in terms of the outcome of the budget, I think first of all the Minister of Finance has very little space in which to operate. We are under an IMF program. It was very essential to get under this program to right the wrongs of the past. We overborrowed. We didn't use the money that we borrowed wisely. It has not led to the growth that we needed to achieve. And as a result, we found that we were not able to meet the commitments that we had made to foreign creditors and to some extent domestic creditors. And as such, a restructuring program was needed. It's a reorganization program of how that debt is treated to give a little bit of relief, so that the government has some space to carry out the programs that they need to carry out. So yes, the minister didn't have too much space. I think tax rates and incentives were tinkered with at best. Mm-hmm. What I didn't like about the budget is that we are not targeting the level of growth that we need to target in order for Zambia to create the wealth that we should be creating for the people of Zambia. Our per capita GDPs are very low. This is basically how much money people have in their pockets. It's extremely low. We're one of the poorest countries in the world, and we target a growth rate, a GDP growth rate in the budget, I think 4.5–4.7%. When you consider our population is growing at 2.5 to 3%, the real growth in the budget is probably 1 to 2%. And I can say to you that that's taking us nowhere. We have to be much more ambitious than that, because we will be sitting with the same problems in 10 years' time if we don't become more ambitious.
Right, and obviously you being in the real estate sector, there were obviously some pronouncements that were in there that obviously resonate to your sector. Could you pick out maybe one or two that you found quite interesting, that maybe offer some opportunity, or where there might be some challenges going forward?
I think what's important to me, as I say, I've already said, is that the tax rates were tinkered with. What I wanted to see in the budget, and which was not entirely there, was broad-based statements about policy changes that are required to get the economy back to growth. And not only statements being made, but actions that need to be taken. I think over the last 2 years, the business community has been very engaged with government through various forums, within the directly to ministries, through the PPDF. We've been very engaged with talking about the constraints that are holding business and investment back. Now, why is this so important? Because business and investment is what creates jobs. Jobs don't just come out of thin air. It requires capital to be deployed in projects to generate jobs. Yes, government can employ people through the civil service, but that's not real job creation, because that's basically just a government expenditure. What I was encouraged about, or have been encouraged about, is the employment of teachers, which is extremely essential. Over the last 10, 15 years, our education system has completely fallen apart. We are not seeing the caliber of graduates coming, when I say graduates from school, coming into the marketplace that need, with the skills that they need to have, or the education that they need to have. So employment of teachers, very, very essential. It does create a benefit in the much longer term, but employing those teachers today is merely just a cost on government. The real wealth comes out of employing, creating jobs in the private sector, productive jobs, you know, with farming, manufacturing, tourism, and so on. In terms of property, what we need to see is a lot of structural changes within the legal framework to unblock the constraints that hold us back. In terms of, the government has created a new terminology for this. They call it rigidities, removing rigidities. Well, it is correct to remove rigidities, but it also requires changes in the policy to begin with, and then the necessary legislation to support that policy. Business in Zambia needs to be freed up. It needs to be given the freedom it needs to operate. We currently have something like 150 statutory bodies in the country. Business, in order to do anything, has to interact with many of these agencies, and each of these agencies take their sweet time to do anything. The one good thing that was mentioned in the budget was the move towards electronic services, where that is working. Like, for example, PACRA, it works very well. It saves a lot of time, it gives instant results, and it does make business easier. So it's encouraging to see government is wanting to expand the electronic or the digital services that they provide. These are the kind of things that we need to see happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, there you have it. Mark O'Donnell has just given us his insights into the 2024 budget. Mark, thank you so much for the honor of sitting down, and we look forward to engaging with you further. Hello everyone, and welcome to this special broadcast of the Financial Insight Show right here at Mulungushi Conference Center, where with me sitting after the presentation by the Minister of Finance and his team is the MD for Absa Bank Zambia, Mzinga Melo. Mzinga, welcome to this episode.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mzinga, it's budget season, and obviously you were at Parliament on Friday, where the Minister gave his budget. Please just tell us about what your initial reactions were about this 2024 budget.
Look, I think it's a budget which is really focused on unlocking economic potential. And I do also agree with the Minister that obviously it's a tough budget, because we have to just make sure that we share what's there, and it's been a bit difficult time. But that said, I think my initial reactions, I think, were probably threefold. I think firstly, I've been very pleased with the fact that he focused on the fact that the mining sector is really, seeing a lot of progress. If you look at KCM, now we have a strategic partner, I think, which is great. And he did commit that Mopani will also be resolved. The resolution is imminent. So that also was really, really good. So I thought that was a big tick. I think the second one is he also focused a lot on some of the big strategic sectors like agriculture. He has focused and zero-rated probably some of the imports, which is really good, because I think the more we push for agriculture, the more we get to resolving some of the current issues we are seeing, like, say, the price of milling meal, because then more people will be going out there to produce more. So I think the agriculture sector also has really been a big winner. I also was very pleased with the increase in some of the social sectors, like him focusing on free education again, hiring more teachers, more health workers, as well as the increase in CDF. I thought that was really good. So I think on the whole, we had some quick wins there,
Absolutely.
and which I thought was really good.
Absolutely. And speaking of quick wins, we know that annually that the Bankers Association of Zambia, which you are currently heading, makes a number of submissions.
Yeah.
Would you say that many of those submissions around the financial sector were addressed in the 2024 budget?
Yeah, you know what? Some of the submissions we made, and I know this hasn't really been spoken about since the budget, like the INRIS, you know, which is the national identification card.
Yeah, and they're introducing biometrics.
Yeah, biometrics. I thought that was really amazing, you know, because for us, it just means when you have INRIS, it means that it's easy for us to onboard clients because the KYC process is shortened. So that was one of the big submissions that we made. We've also seen him, you know, react to, you know, some of the submissions, like, for example, the BOP, which is the e-balance of payment monitoring system. And the Deputy Governor spoke about that as well. This is really where, you know, all clients who export, you know, when the money will come into the country before it goes out.
Correct.
And that will be effective, you know, probably in the first quarter. As banks, we are saying we are preparing for that, we are ready for that. And that will have a direct effect on the currency, you know, because all the money currently, you know, you don't necessarily have to bring everything back, but everything comes back, we account for it, and then it goes.
You know, speaking of some of those submissions, we have noted that obviously agriculture has, to be fair, gotten a large number of initiatives. How would you say that some of the initiatives that were submitted in terms of the other broader membership, because obviously Zaki represents, you know, it's the motherboard.
Broader, yes. Zaki represents all sectors of the economy. Exactly. We talk of mining as well. You know, we welcome the move. The government has come in. Vendetta has been, KCM has been unlocked at the moment.
And Mopani is inside?
Mopani is on site. There are other issues that need to be done. We're all looking forward to that. We are looking at issues of when Mopani is unlocked and KCM, there are still other issues that ought to be sorted out. Out there, like for local suppliers and contractors. Most of the guys from the Gower Belt are yet to be paid, and so on. We need liquidity in the economy, and that hasn't been happening. So everyone is looking forward with the unlocking of KCM, and immediately when the new owners come in, they need to pay the suppliers and contractors, so that there is liquidity and continuity in the mining sector.
Absolutely. Yeah. And are you encouraged by some of the initiatives around PPP, for example, and for example, with some of the deals that have been signed around roads? Because the minister also touched on that and the importance of transportation. How important is having, you know, like infrastructure around logistics for your membership?
It is very important, and you know, with the limited resources government has at the moment, PPP is the way to go. The private sector has to play a role. In our submission there, we really welcomed the minister. Yeah, we're talking of energy sector, the capacity we have right now for the pipeline. We don't have enough capacity to bring in all the crude that the finished product that we need. Absolutely. So this is where the private sector comes in, and the roads as well. So that partnership to us is critical.
A lot of expectations, you know, and I think driven mainly because obviously we had a debt restructuring exercise, and I think everyone's expectations were quite high. We've restructured, or at least made some significant progress. What's the budget going to look like? So expectations are quite high. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. And you know, obviously, you know, with expectations being high, I turn now to, you know, your sector. You know, you're in the technology sector. What were some of the key takeaways in there that you felt, okay, they delivered on, especially when the lobbying from various, you know, technology partners that had put across? How is the budget now looking after, you know, your sector?
I'll be honest. So nothing significant for sector. So clearly, I think we need to do a bit more engagement. So last year we saw some very positive changes. Our corporate tax rate was reduced by 5%. We expect a bit more this year. We're still sitting with a corporate tax rate of 35% for technology or telecom sector. Consumer taxes are still quite high. Our view is that technology, including internet bandwidth, is an enabler, right? And everyone needs to make concerted effort to make it more affordable to businesses, to individuals. And I think government's part in that is creating the right incentives, starting with the taxes. So we have the view that there's still scope to reduce further the current tax charges, both on the corporate side and also on the consumer side.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we observed was that government is also talking about increasing on the infrastructure around towers, etc.
Yes.
Do you think that in a way is also them now trying to understanding that there is a need obviously for connectivity, yes, and growth in that particular sector?
No, absolutely there is. I think that's a positive change. Obviously, I mean, there's governments and the industry needs to look at the many ways of delivering this technology, right? Installing towers is one of them. Satellites is another. Fiber is another. So I think it will be a combination of various platforms of technology that can be used to sort of increase accessibility to technology or telecommunications. So that's definitely a positive on the part of government and this budget.
And my final question is around e-government. There's talk now in the budget of the digital registration, the biometric registration.
Yes.
Do you have any comments around that? Because we know that Liquid Intelligence is invested in several different types of solutions that they're providing to the Zambian market. Do you believe that this is a positive move?
Definitely a positive move, but I think we need to fully sort of understand that. But as I said, technology is an enabler, and I think by making sure that it's affordable, it makes it easier for government to sort of roll out these services to the population. So definitely a positive development, but I think we need to look at that further to fully understand and appreciate what government is trying to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mwendamo, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I'm sure now, the rest of the week will be more budget analysis events
Absolutely.
that we'll be attending.
Yes, it was a pleasure and thanks for having me.
The initial reaction is a bit mixed, but very hopeful. I think there are a lot of pronouncements that have been made, and the minister has made a couple of proposals that are quite positive.
Right.
But then there are others where we're saying we need a bit more work done here from an accounting perspective.
Absolutely, and I did note that in your reactions this morning when you basically gave the Zika position. But then we also understand a financial insight that your organization is intent to actually engage with government and to give advice. How do you see going forward, especially with this particular, but this being the first one? How do you see the post-budget engagement being like?
I think it's very positive. We have a minister that is open to dialogue. So for us, we have an open door and we're very happy about that. But then again, we just need to engage our members as well.
Correct.
Because we want our accountants to go through the budget.
Correct.
And critique it. It's not just on me alone.
Absolutely.
So it has to be a collective, team of effort as we engage government.
Absolutely, and from this morning's insight that you actually gave, there were some aspects of the budget that obviously your membership don't really agree on. How do you intend to engage with the Minister of Finance to see that there's some common understanding, and maybe there might be need for further explanation as to why you actually have that particular position?
Yes, so one of them is the CDF, and the position that we have is we're commending government on increasing the CDF, and as the minister said in his presentation at the post-budget analysis, he did say, tell us where we're going wrong and how we can resolve some of these issues. So we're saying the CDF has been increased, which is a fantastic thing. Correct. Because it's going into the community, but then we have not seen any reports.
Correct.
How is it being absorbed? What is the process of accessing the CDF? Is it transparent? We are just asking for accountability.
Absolutely.
Being accountants and auditors, we need to see that.
Absolutely.
So before you spend, how much has been spent already and how has it been applied?
Absolutely.
And I believe those are questions that we need answers to.
Absolutely.
Now, we're not just leaving it there. We're saying we are accountants. We are here to help. Because
Absolutely.
when we look at the CDF guidelines, it does provide for professional, administrative roles to be provided. And we're saying we are here to do that for you. Coupled with that, we do have a course under Zika, which is for the public sector finance management.
Is that so?
And we're saying this looks at how these public resources are managed. So we are employing the government. Yes, they need to employ more accountants in these constituencies, but then we're saying they need to do this training as well. Because when we look at the Office of the Auditor General, they do not have capacity. They can't go around all the constituencies on top of the other functions that they have.
Correct, correct. And what we're quite excited about as Financial Insight is to actually see this post-budget engagement, because you've actually thrown an olive branch actually to them to say that, no, look, this is the problem, but then we also have the solution through our organization.
Yes.
All right. Yande Mwenya, thank you so much for this special interview, and we look forward to seeing you again at the coming events.
Thank you very much.
The budget was announced last week, Friday. What were your initial reactions to it?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a build-up from the previous year's budget, and I think key to us was the theme of the budget in itself, unlocking economic potential. I think that set the stage, in our view, for a lot of incentives, a lot of conversations around concessions, and basically, I think for the manufacturing sector, there are a number of wins. Some other areas for clarifications as well. But I think we are headed in the right direction. From the presentations that were done this morning, I think you could see from the Secretary to Treasury's presentation, for instance, that the intention is to set us back on a path. So there's been a lot that has happened that could have possibly taken us off that growth trajectory, not only pandemics, but other issues in the tax environment and so on. But it's good, I think, to see a budget that seems geared to promote private sector-led development. And as a manufacturing sector, I think we're quite keen to be part of that journey and to actively participate in increasing our contribution to GDP.
Absolutely. And Situmbeko, Financial Insight knows that earlier on in the year that, ZAM made a number of submissions, as they always do on an annual basis. How much of some of the initiatives that, incentives that you requested for were adopted in this particular year's budget? And what was left out that going forward might need to be revisited?
Okay, so we've had a few days to look through the budget and to do our initial analysis on the same. So I think the final numbers in terms of what was and was not adopted, we'll share during our budget presentation or meeting with the minister on Friday this week. But in the run-up to that, I think we just want to highlight some key areas that we spotted as having been accepted or adopted by the ministry. And the first one, and probably the biggest one of them, is the value chain approach to the cotton industry. So cotton industry development has always been a huge conversation for us, noting how the sector used to perform in the past and the losses that we subsequently incurred as a result of changes in policy, right? So the tax holidays that are being extended across the entire value chain, from the seed producers to the ginners to the weavers and so on, really create an environment within which the private sector can actively engage and participate. So that's an approach that we are hoping will be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of a value chain approach when it comes to providing incentives, and that in future, in the medium to long term, we'll begin to see that extended to other subsectors. I think one off the bat that we think of is the edible oil subsector, for instance, and even in the minerals development. We're always talking about value addition to our mineral products, and that's an approach that could be adopted going forward.
You are just in the symposium, and I wanted to get some comments from you. So with regards to this year's budget, what do you think of government's standpoint right now, where it says they are going to spend exactly what they have budgeted for compared to previous years?
Okay, I think for me, I welcome that a lot, because getting from the words of the Honorable Minister of Finance, is that when you look at the national budget, you can actually look at it even in an individual budget. I think that's what he said. So if the government wants to be disciplined in spending what they've budgeted for, it basically means that things are going to be under control. Like for instance, if I give an example, if as an individual, your income is, for argument's sake, 10,000, but you decide to live a lifestyle where you are spending, for argument's sake, 15,000, what that means is that that difference has to be made up. And in most cases, that making up of the difference is debt. And I think as this country, we know that we've grappled with debt. That's been a burden to the nation. So I think being disciplined and spending within the means of the budget, for me, that is very welcome. And I think when I look at that budget, it's good to note that in the way that the budget has been done, the 178 billion budget, there's just a small portion of about 34 billion or thereabout, which ideally should be supported by debt, and that is split almost equally between local debt and external debt. So if we are not disciplined on the expenditure, this 34 billion debt would go up, and that would not be good for us. So it's important that we are disciplined in our spending, and I like that the minister emphasized that fact. Thanks.
I think that's amazing. And you've mentioned that 34 billion is what is going to constitute of the debt, which is a reduction from $41 billion, which was 41 billion kwacha rather, which was contracted in last year's budget. Now, what do you take of government standpoint to finance this budget with lower debt, and in particular with how they are going to raise the debt from the local market?
Okay, so essentially, when government borrows, especially let's say the local debt, that basically means this is money that government raises through government bonds, treasury bills, and so forth. So if that reduces, then us as a financial sector, where I'm coming from, it will basically force us, because we still have the money, instead of lending it to government by investing in those bonds, we are going to, this is going to give us room to extend loans to the private sector and hence grow the economy. I think the bigger the economy, the more tax revenue we can collect and so forth. So for me, this is very welcome.
How was the presentation of the 2024 budget? What were your key takeaways of this one?
Well, I think the presentation of the 2024 budget was quite encouraging, I should say, in terms of trying to get the economy out of its doldrums. I think you've noted that there was a decline in the economy in the previous year, and we're paying the price by the prediction that growth this year would only be 2.7%. We're inspired that the minister has actually focused on some of the underperforming sectors, such as agriculture, such as livestock production, such as fisheries, for example, because we believe that these are the areas, if invested in, sustainably managed, and also if value is added to them, loads of people can be lifted out of poverty. It's also encouraging to note that within this year's budget, there is some action and acknowledgement that the FIZ is not working, and yet communities out there who are into farming are faced by the ravages of climate change. So what I would say is that it would have been great to see where the reduction has been moved to. Has it been moved to climate smart technology? Has it been moved to conservation agriculture? It has potentially been moved to the equipment that has been noted that will be used for early warning. So that is very encouraging, because without data, we can't really respond to the challenge of climate change. So overall, I think the budget is in a positive direction. The emphasis particularly on the approval of SME backing around the credit guarantee scheme is crucial, because the SMEs carry this economy, and so they need to be facilitated with access to financing. So if the government has come forward, I think that is fantastic. We're also encouraged by the increase in the CDF. We believe that the economy happens at a very local level. We also believe that challenges such as climate change are manifested at the local level. So our hope as WWF is that at least a significant portion of CDF-related investments, especially in climate-prone areas, will go there to make sure people have access to water and can be productive.
Look, in my view, the 2024 budget is consistent, with the aspirations of the government to unlock value. Okay, key word, to unlock value in the various sectors of the economy, and most importantly, in the mining sector. So I think it's something that we are all looking forward to, okay, to see how best this is going to help further improve and have gains on the economy. And most importantly, the announcements as well on the fact that KCM and Mopani is going to be unlocked, which will further support the economy of our country. As we know, the mining sector contribution to the economy of the country. I must mention that, this is an exciting time for all of us that are working in the mining industry, especially with the key announcements that the Honorable Minister made during the budget presentation. But in my view, I think there are 4 things that stand out, okay? The first one, of course, is the news that the Konkola copper mines will be unlocked, as well as the commitments that have been given. As you know, Mwelwa, Konkola copper mines has great potential, okay? And there's a great resource base with a life of about 40 years minimum at one of our units in Konkola, okay? Maybe not to digress a bit, but just to provide a bit of detail. Konkola Copper Mines is one of Zambia's largest integrated copper mines, with presence in 4 locations, namely in Changa, which is Chingola. Then we've got Konkola, where we've got our underground mining assets, as well as some processing assets in the form of concentrator. And then in Kitwe, where we've got our Nkana refinery. And last but not the least, in Lusaka West, where we've got our Nampundwe, our pyrite mine. So the news that Konkola copper mines will be unlocked, and more importantly, the expected investment, to unlock one of the key assets in the name of the Konkola Deep Mining Project, okay, with an investment of approximately $1 billion plus, as well as the other news of the $250 million, which will go a long way in supporting our working capital requirements, which is on the payments for the, the vendors. I think that is going to greatly help the company, and more importantly, Mwela, contribute to the target of 3 million tons per annum. I think Konkola Copper Mines is better placed to fit into the vision of the government.